If you have over $200,000 sitting stagnant in your bank, retirement account, or home equity, then you're literally losing money. On this show, you learn how to get that money working for you consistently and conservatively. Learn to grow your nest egg with your host, Shawn Winslow. Let's dive in.
Hey, Ari, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Let's just jump into where you came from, who you are, what you're doing now. Everyone loves a good origin story, so if you don't mind sharing.
Sure. So I was born in Austin, Texas, kind of where our firm is headquartered now. I grew up in Dallas for middle school and high school, Texas A&M undergrad. I was an English major in undergrad. Don't know how I ended up running a private equity firm, but another discussion. So I was an English
Good
major.
Communication.
Yeah, and then went to law school, and in law school started my first real estate investment business with a $3,000 loan. And shortly after that, 2008 hit. So that didn't work out exactly how I had planned, but definitely recouped all my money. So that was good. And moved to New York City. Spent about 7 years in New York working for some of the biggest and brightest real estate minds in the world. And I started Rastegar, our shop, about 7 years ago. And we've since invested in 38 cities, 12 states, 7 different asset classes. Currently, we take a kind of deep value, agnostic approach to investing. We're pretty much invested in every asset class right now. And we're developing on 6 different plots now within the Sun Belt in Phoenix, Dallas, the Austin MSA, Kyle, Texas, and staying busy to say the least.
Yeah, sounds like it. 7 asset classes. You're in the hot markets. Sounds like you're busy, and that's a great backstory. And minus the English major, which I know it probably does benefit you, because the communication. But minus that, it seems like your background has kind of led you to, thrive in real estate investing because you had the private equity experience, so raising and managing capital, and then working in New York for big real estate shops. Probably learned the operations. So.
Yeah, I was really lucky. I was really lucky, man, to say the least. And the English major, I don't think it did anything, directly. But to your point, it had me reading a bunch of books and kind of develop that skill of reading, which definitely has been advantageous, no doubt. And I still am very much an avid reader. So it definitely taught me to be a little more patient. So if it was just that, it was worth it.
So what was that first investment, that $3,000?
It was a single family home in Spring Branch, Texas.
Okay.
So just north of San Antonio, where I went to law school. There was a gentleman there that was a pretty notorious builder in the area. His name was on a lot of different sides. And back in 2005, 2006, it felt like right when framing started, it was like, oh, for sale, sold, for sale, sold.
Right.
And one day I showed up at his office and said, look, I don't have much. I delivered pizzas through college and, flip burgers at Johnny Rockets when I was in high school. I don't have too much, but I got the rest of my scholarship money and a little bit of cash. And if I were to buy this lot, what would that look like for kind of what I came to learn later would have been a JV. And he kind of took the step and we started doing business together, and that one turned into 2 and kept growing from there. So turned out pretty good.
Awesome. And then how did you make that transition to New York? I'm sure a lot of listeners are thinking like they'd love to make a big transition in their career. Yeah, it's a big jump. So how did that come about? Was there anything in your background that you could leverage to make that happen?
Yeah. Again, I can't, explain enough how luck really does play a role in this stuff. Like, so and I'm a super hard worker. Anybody that knows me knows that, but there's just some things that are just happen because of grace. And this was one of them. My wrestling coach growing up, or our assistant wrestling coach, I was very close with since I was about 10 years old. His cousin was the head of Credit Suisse's conduit lending business and was, doing real estate finance. Is still one of the biggest names in the world in real estate finance. And he introduced me to him. We had actually met years before in the wrestling locker room, I believe, but didn't really connect or actually formally meet until many years after, I'd got out of law school, et cetera, and told him what I wanted to do. And at the time, I had the idea to, or we had the idea collectively to do some things in the entertainment space. The real estate markets in 08, 09, obviously were a tough space, recovering from the recession. So we decided to launch a entertainment business. And so we did parties around the Super Bowl, NBA All-Star game. I actually talk about it in my book pretty extensively that comes out in July. And from there, I kind of had proximity, so being around him, being around his friends and the people we were going to entertain with, I started to build relationships. And after the entertainment business didn't work out, which I'm very, very happy that it didn't, I kind of found my in to get back to my real passion, which was, clearly in real estate. And one thing led to another, but it was literally a very humble start. There was times where I was, just waiting outside his apartment just to pick him up, to drive him to work and just have a couple minutes to talk. And that little by little turned into friendships with people at dinner, and a huge real estate hotel developer operator I had met at one of these dinners, and he literally said to me, you want to come work for me? As basic as that. And he was launching this new hotel brand called King and Grove. They've since, kind of changed the name, but so I went and worked for him, and him and I together, we were, did the acquisition for the Chelsea Hotel, which was interesting. I pretty much did nothing. He, him and his partners did everything. I was just kind of pushing papers. But that, along with Surf Lodge, reopening Surf Lodge, and Roosh Meyer's behind it, building that, developing it, and some stuff down in Miami. And yeah, so it kind of took from there.
Wow. So you've got a very diverse background, which is not usually what I see on the show. So it's refreshing. That's amazing. So you went from the entertainment business, throwing events, and then you moved into the hotel side of the business. So do you still focus on the hotel
that's the one asset class right now that I don't deal with.
Don't touch, right?
I don't think it's the right time. Retail is probably really low on that end too. We have a master plan development in Kyle, Texas, on 318 acres that we're doing a bunch of build for rent, multifamily, commercial, retail. So there's a 50,000 square foot retail component there that we're putting a barbecue shop, a brewery, and some other cool stuff to service that neighborhood. But aside from that, and owning the bricks on a restaurant here in Austin, that's about as far as retail will go for me at the moment. I used to do a lot of retail many years ago, but we saw that party starting to slow up. I think a lot of people can still do really well in that space and they understand it. It's just from a risk mitigation standpoint, it's really not my cup of tea at the moment.
Agree. So you're primarily doing development, or do you buy any stabilized assets?
No. So development is actually really new for us. We broke ground on on kind of a JV. We assembled the land on this parcel on South First here in Austin. That was several different parcels. I think either three or four different owners, to put this whole thing together, and brought in fantastic group based in Canada to take over the site and, put it into this partnership. And we retained a pretty substantial equity position in the deal that broke ground about a week ago. And we're actually breaking ground tomorrow.
Oh, congratulations.
On our post-COVID boutique office concept, which is on East 8th and I-35. Effectively, downtown is right here. You cross the highway. We're right in East Austin, which is like the new kind of Brooklyn of Austin. And we're building a little 2-story, 24,000 square foot office. Super cool. Looks, straight out of, Iron Man. It's like, Stark Enterprises. So we break ground on that tomorrow, and we're developing that. We did the acquisition, soup to nuts, raised the equity, raised the debt, and we're developing it. So pretty exciting to kind of go that. But from a multifamily standpoint, we have I don't even know how many buildings now, probably 12 or 13 multifamily assets here in Austin that we've done our own management on. We've done the renovations down to the studs ourselves. So yeah, that's very much a big part of our business, and development is kind of lagged behind it a little bit, but now development is definitely taking front and center on 6 major developments coming to pass throughout 2022 and then the beginning of 2023.
Very nice. And how long have you been investing in Austin?
I've been investing in Austin for about 7 years, 7, 8 years.
Nice. So you're on the good side of the wave then.
It's my home. It's my hometown too,
Oh,
man.
okay.
It's my hometown, and again, we were fortunate to kind of see the writing on the wall pretty early on. Google in 2013 announced that they were going to use Austin as their beta case for Google Fiber, and that was kind of a aha moment that if Google is going to go spend $1 billion to bring fiber out of every other city they could have picked in the U.S. Kansas City, Missouri was on that list. Austin was on that list, and that was pretty much it to my knowledge. That was the point where like, okay, well, if it hasn't happened, it seems like it's going to be inevitable. And now look what Austin has become, the new Silicon Valley or
crazy
Silicon Hills, right?
It's crazy. Yeah, Boston, Massachusetts, where I'm from, was originally like on the preliminary list, but we didn't make the cut. But for Google, but yeah, that's
Boston, not Austin.
Yeah, exactly. Get it confused. It's funny.
Exactly.
I'll have conversations. They'll think I'm saying one or the other.
I was just in Boston a few weeks ago. One of our partners is headquartered there. Unbelievable.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I love Austin. I was there right before COVID. I'm a big F1 fan, so I was there for the race.
Man, you got to make it down. Whenever you make it here, you let me know. We'll chop it up.
Will do. I love Austin. Such a good time. I wish I had gotten in before the wave though, because it was definitely originally on my.
Still going, man. I mean, I hear that a lot, and before the wave and this, that, and the other. And I understand why you say that and why most people say that, but this is just the beginning. If you look at the 140 acres that Apple bought in North Austin to put their new office on, it's not going to deliver until 2025. Google just now, finished their 1.2 million square foot office building here in downtown. Oracle announced their headquarters move here. Tesla, the Gigafactory just opened a few weeks ago. So yes, prices have gone up dramatically, clearly, but I believe we have a strong 10-year plus run before there's any signs of slowing down. So if there's still an impetus to invest in the city, be in the city, I would highly advise for those listening to sharpen their pencils and take a look, because there's definitely still more runway.
Oh, I appreciate that. I'm definitely so pro Austin. It's just, adding another market to the list, developing those relationships, which is worth it. Don't get me wrong.
Hey, you have me. Well, you have me.
That's true.
I'll be your conduit. That's all
okay.
You need.
Hey, see that's what's the best thing about these podcasts. It's like, we build these relationships and it's just easy. I kind of want to dig into your private equity background too, because obviously all this exciting stuff you're doing, it's not free, right? It costs money. You got to raise money. So how have you been able to leverage your background, if you have, and how is it helping you now?
Sure. Look, the short answer is when you're building any type of business, when you're, investing in things, raising capital, raising debt, doing acquisitions, there's nothing easy about it. So there's this is not for the faint of heart by any stretch of the imagination. So you have to have a super high degree of conviction that this is something that you really want to do, and have a super high level of conviction that, the deals and things that you're doing also, other people would want to be a part of as well. So for me, it was, really going to, friends and family at the beginning. And being in New York, there's a lot of, very high net worth individuals, believe it or not, in the entertainment business. Some of the relationships that we cultivated there, were, some of the capital that came to these projects, still very close friends, partners to this day. And it's definitely not easy. But one thing I'll say is that, money is really unlimited. Deals are not.
Yeah.
So anybody that's looking to get into the business, if you get an unbelievably good deal put together, or you figure out something that somebody else doesn't, and you're able to, to lock that deal up, and to be able to, to lock a deal up under contract is substantially less capital intensive than clearly closing on it. There are great opportunities with the big brokerage shops, whether with JLL or CBRE, Newmark, and a bunch of other, local shops that can help you source the debt and source the equity, or find a joint venture partner to go. But the key is the scarcity is within the deals themselves. And sometimes we're focused on the money, or thinking that we need to go find money. And that becomes like the key focus, which I think is a big mistake. The focus needs to be find a great opportunity. And I'm a big believer that the money will come if you have a great deal.
I agree. If you have obviously that goes back to also being the communication skills and having that network, right? That took you many years to develop, that you can go to and get that equity. But I agree. Once you have that framework set, the deal is the most important part. 'Cause like you said, there's a limited amount of them, and with how competitive it is today, to actually get a deal, that's kind of finding that diamond in the rough. So
Yeah, and it doesn't need to be the greatest deal since sliced bread, per se, but it needs to have a story and you need to be able to articulate that. I think that a mistake that a lot of people make, and I certainly, did the same, is overcomplicating what the deal is with the minutia of explaining all the mechanics, all the numbers, all the things. Whereas in these initial meetings, certainly with your banks and with your with your investors, is explaining the story in more of a layman's terms to start with. So when you introduce the topic, explain what's unique about it. Be a person talking to a person, telling the story of what the deal is, explain the high level kind of economics. And once you overcome that initial discussion of gaining the interest, then you really carve into the nitty gritty of understanding the performas and understanding understanding the numbers on a deeper level. But I would really focus on understanding what is the narrative around what that deal specifically is, and then once that level of interest has been captured, then move it into some of the more detail oriented discussions.
couldn't agree more. So 7 asset classes. Are there all 7 you're focused on now, or you've kind of
Yes.
really?
Yes, we are. And the way we're able to do that is great partnerships.
Yep.
So, for example, we're, building industrial as an example, we're literally working with one of the most prolific real estate investment firms in the world. And so knowing what and doing what you do best and what we like to do and what we think we do pretty well. Old friend of mine used to say, if you ever say anything good about yourself, you have to say, if I do say so myself. So if there's anything good that we do, if I do say so myself, is finding those opportunities, finding those deals, in this instance, land, getting it entitled, getting it permitted, and getting it to a place where it's ready to be kind of shovel ready, and then bringing in a subject matter expert that will co-develop it or develop it and use their expertise, their strategy, their balance sheet to be able to take that to the next level, and then find what the next deal is, pair it with a strategic partner, and then really grow from there. And as time goes on and you do those projects, the hope is that you learn how to do it. Maybe you onboard new talent and you begin to build that out one step at a time. But the beginning is not shying away from really strategic alliances, because you have a lot to learn.
Yeah, and that skill that you have is one of the biggest hurdles to get over in real estate, in my opinion. Like if you can't get over that, then you're not doing anything, right? You're not building anything. You're not breaking ground. So, and I think for listeners, that's a huge thing to take away, is like find out like what Ari said you're really good at, and just make that even more powerful, and then bring that to value to other people. And what I've learned in real estate is, it's like he said, it's all about partnerships, and that's how you grow. If you're out there just trying to do it all yourself, you're not going to get as far as you could.
And you're also not going to do it as well.
Right.
So there's, whatever the impetus is, whether you think you should do it all yourself or whether it's greed, or it's usually not a good reason to try to do it all yourself, because certainly when you're starting out, for God's sake, I mean, if you're coming into this business on the private equity side, clearly you've had some level of success. Clearly you've done something, in the past before that's giving you, the drive to go build the private equity. So like you said, I would have some, introspection into what you've done well, what got you to that point to even have the thought you could run a real estate, private equity firm or do larger deals, hone into that thing and build the relationships with people that do it way better than you, or do that other piece way better than you, and set up the alignment. But, real estate is all about, it's all partnerships, not necessarily the, in the truest sense of like the legal partnership, where in a lot of instances it is, but there's always other people you're working with, just like any big businesses, whether you're, your financial partners at the bank that you're lending from, you're borrowing from in multifamily, whether Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac, or your bridge lenders, your equity partners on that instance, or the contractors you're working with to renovate the units or build them. It's about those partnerships in general. So wrapping your head around the concept that this is a partnership level ethos is one of the first steps to set yourself up to be successful.
100%. This game's all about leverage, obviously from the debt itself to acquire more real estate, but also from other resources like human capital to go further.
Well, that's what makes, real estate, on the commercial side is a good business, but the leverage or the financing is what makes it a great business. So, working with the Fannie Mae's and the Freddie Mac's and the multifamily standpoint at 65, 70% LTV, whatever you're after, I would, definitely try not to over lever yourself, please. But using accretive leverage and using it right to that kind of tipping point is what makes those levered returns pretty sexy. So if you need to learn how to utilize that if you're not.
And talking about that, I'd love to get your opinion. We've seen the 10-year make a pretty big run in the last month.
Yeah.
What is your view on that? Where do you see where we could be in the next 6 to 12 months?
I mean, I think another 50 basis points is not out of the question.
Yeah.
Without, I think it's, in a lot of ways, I think it's needed. I'm not too excited about it, but at some point, if you're doing any deal where 50 basis points or half of 1%, let's say, is making or breaking your deal, you should not be doing that deal.
Right.
So if we're over here and we're in an extremely low interest rate environment, if you go back to the Jimmy Carter era, rates were at like 18% and people were still printing money. So if we're, over here bulking that we're at, 4.8% or, it's something like that, that's, I think it's just a little bit foolish. We were very lucky and spoiled for many, many years to have, arguably, negative interest rates if you factor in inflation and things of that nature. So I think it's just a way to just really sharpen those pencils and, make sure you're doing the right deals for the right reasons. And if 50 basis points makes you do that, great. You should be doing it anyway. But I'm not too worried about it. The thing that I am more worried about is the supply costs going crazy. I mean, we were looking at one of our development deals and the subcontractor told us that the cost for roofing is going up by 10% a month. Now that's a real number.
That's insane. Yeah. That's 100% in 10 months.
Yeah. Non-compounded. Yeah, exactly. It's a crazy number. So the supply chain logistics issues, certainly on development, is something that you really, really have to be aware of and really look into with a really, with kind of a close lens.
Yeah. And just getting this stuff too, even if you buy it, how long is it going to take? We have a project that we're turning about 75% of the property. And the one thing that's holding up the interiors is we're doing a butcher block countertop. And for whatever reason, the butcher block countertops have been held, and that's what's holding us up. So the whole supply chain thing.
Yeah, those are the things that are kind of making me lose sleep, for lack of a better description.
Well, especially now that you're getting into development, because that's the whole gambit of the supply chain, right? From ground to up. So how do you guys manage that? Do you bring on obviously a construction partner?
Oh yeah. We bring on general contractors for all this.
Yeah.
And certainly in these years on projects that are, this wide ranging from master plans to single family development, build for rent, condos, high rise, in the different cities we're in, from Phoenix to Dallas to Austin. It wouldn't make sense without having subject matter experts, having general contractors that know that space, having the GMPs and that risk mitigation, right? Just like really concentrating on that, the proverbial don't lose money versus focusing too much on making money.
So I always, I ask people, because as you build your company, are you keeping those siloed? Are you vertically integrating, or you just want to keep them third party? Would you ever bring that in-house?
Well, I mean, we have we had in-house property management for many, many years. Recently, we're migrating to third-party property management, but I think there's a lot to be said in being vertically integrated to understand the different silos of the business. So certainly using the consultants and on the bigger things, absolutely, and or third-party contractors. But there's also something to be said about learning the property management side of the business. It's not a very attractive business, a lot of blocking and tackling. It's definitely a thankless job, but understanding property management is really that boots on the ground of, how the sausage is really made. And it's very important to understand that. Some of the, best real estate investors I know came out of property management. They understood what it takes to, lease an apartment, what it takes to renovate an apartment, to collect the rents, and, having, variable pricing when it comes to leasing apartments. And, there's a lot of mechanics that go into it. So even if you're not doing it, which I think, there's definitely a case study to be had to not do it. For us, once the properties are fully renovated, we don't want to manage them ourselves. We manage them at the beginning for quality control. That we want to make sure that things are being done to, the standards that, that we have, but it's definitely something that you need to understand the nuts and bolts of.
Yeah, for sure. And I can see both sides of the argument for being vertically integrated or not. It all just comes down to like what do you want in your life, and
Yeah. And it's back to that point we said that, we both touched on of what do you do really well and what
yeah,
do you like to do? What do you want to do? And, there's different personality types there. There's people that are looking that really love the development, the contracting side. Okay, well, do that, please. Work with somebody else who has the deal and then bring the component to the actual development side of it to them. Like it doesn't, if it's not your deal, maybe it's their deal and you help them develop it, or if it's your deal, right? So you just have to understand, what side of the business you want to play on, why, and, what's the, kind of competitive edge that you bring to the table.
couldn't agree more. So where do you see Rastegar company in the next 5 years?
I see, well, for starters, I see these projects that we're working on now, like the high rise that we're building in Phoenix, or the master plan community, or the high rise that we're building, condo project in Dallas. These are, 2.5 year plus builds. So in that 3 to 5 years, I see, the, kind of the fruits of this labor really coming to fruition and being leased up and stabilized, and watching this, these past 7, then probably 10 years worth of work, really coming to life. But we are not slowing down. If anything, we're probably accelerating when it comes to, the acquisitions that we're doing. But really building out the team and building out the different silos of subject matter expertise within the firm, of figuring out, who's going to run industrial, who's going to be, working on high rises, acquisitions, and just building a deeper bench and bringing in more kind of top tier talent around the different, just the different silos that it takes to make these deals actually come to life.
I love that answer. I actually haven't gotten that answer, but that's something I've been thinking a lot about is, as you grow as a company, it's sometimes even more important to invest in the team than the next deal, right? Because you can only get so far with a certain team, and you need to grow that. So I'm glad you said that. But before I ask the last question, I wanna ask, where can the listeners find you? Is there anything you want to share with them?
Sure. I mean, just a simple Google search of my name or Rastegar property or anything like that. It's pretty public what we've done. They can find us. I told someone the other day, there's this 11, now 12-year-old gentleman in the UK who reached out to me through various social media sites, whether through Instagram and LinkedIn, and he was able to find me in the UK, and his mother and I have become good friends. We're actually co-authoring a book together right now.
Oh, wow.
So I'm sure sophisticated people that are listening to this, if they really want to find me, it'd be pretty easy to find me.
All right, awesome. All right, the last question I ask, this is the only thing that I ask every time, and it's because I have a background in finance, so I like to bring some personal finance education to the show. And what it simply is if you could go back in time, to your younger self, you said you were flipping burgers, making pizza, buying that first house. If you could give your younger self one piece of financial advice, what would that be?
Learn accounting.
Wow. It's the first time I've gotten that one, but I couldn't agree.
Learn accounting. If you want to be in finance in any facet, at that age, and especially in this era with the YouTube and all the free resources out there, I'm not saying to be an accountant necessarily. If you want to, great. But if you want to be in this business, if you understand accounting at a more than moderate level, I would say, you're going to be head and shoulders above the next person in line. And it's something that I look back on, and my dad definitely told me that I need to study accounting, and I didn't listen. But it's something that it becomes a little bit harder to learn later in life. Definitely not impossible. You can definitely do it. I'm sure people way smarter than me or can figure that out. But yeah, I would learn accounting.
I agree. It's important to know where the money's going and where it shouldn't be going. No, that's a great answer. And that's another first for the show too. A lot of I get the same, kind of canned answers, but that's a great one. Nowadays I wish I paid more attention to my last accounting class I took way back. So.
You and me both.
Well, Ari, I really appreciate your time today. This has been a wonderful conversation, and I will definitely take you up on the offer next time I'm in Austin. But yeah, thank you so much for coming on, and we really appreciate it.
Thanks, Shawn. You have a great day, buddy.
All right, thanks. Later, everybody.
Hey, this is Shawn Winslow. After being in the financial service industry for years and having candid conversations with good people just like you, I realized that so many of us are wanting an investment strategy that provides solid returns and consistent income without the bumps in the road. There's little known secret that your financial advisor doesn't want you to know. There is an investment out there that is less volatile and the returns are stronger. Get more details by going to greenbriercg.com and clicking on the free e-report. And by the way, if this show has provided you any value, then feel free to leave an honest written review and of course share it with a friend who needs it. See you next week for another great show.